Hello and welcome. We are going to look at integers today, and we're going to define what exactly are integers. And then we're going to go a little bit further and look at opposite numbers, writing integers, and looking at absolute values of numbers. An integer, if we look at the definition of what an integer is the set of whole numbers and their opposites. And then we could take it a little bit further. We could say, okay, what is an opposite number? And we could say opposite numbers are going to be numbers that are going to be the same distance from zero on a number line. So we have this example of a number line below, and we can see that we have zero in the middle, and then to the right of zero, we go in the positive direction, and then to the left of zero, we go in the negative direction. So we want to figure out what is an example of an opposite number. How do we figure out what the opposite of a number is? So let's say that we pick out this number, we're going to pick out this number 4. We can see that from zero, we are going 1, 2, 3, 4 places in the positive direction away from zero. So when we talk about opposite numbers and we talk about finding the opposite of a positive 4, we would look at going in the opposite direction another 4 places. So 1, 2, 3, 4 places in the negative direction is going to give us the opposite number of positive 4 being a negative 4. So we can look at writing integers now that we've kind of looked at positive and negative numbers, defining opposites. We can look at writing integers by using a number line and deciding if this situation is going to be written as a positive or a negative integer. Now we have this number line below, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this number line, it is horizontal, and I'm going to spin it to be vertical. It does not lose any importance of being a number line if it's horizontal or if it's vertical. It's going to say the same thing. It's going to give you the same information either way. So if we look at this number line, we are looking at this situation and it's telling us that we are 340 feet below underwater or below sea level. So the first thing I'm going to do with my number line is I'm going to define where is zero. Okay, and I'm going to say zero is probably about right here. And what does zero stand for in this situation? And we would say that zero is going to show us sea level. Okay, this is going to be where we are, if we're below the water surface, we're coming up, we're going above the water surface, but that sea level where that water line is, that's going to be where zero is on our number line. If we go above sea level, okay, so we're going higher than the water, we are going in the positive direction. If we go below sea level, we are looking at going in the negative direction. So in this situation, we are talking about being 340 feet below sea level. So I'm just going to put this down here, 340 feet. Since we know that sea level is zero and we're going below sea level, we could define this situation as being negative 340 feet as compared to where the water's surface is. And that's how we could write this as an integer, as negative 340 feet is equal to 340 feet below underwater or below sea level. Another example of writing integers would be, let's say we have this situation where we have an 8-degree rise in temperature. So I'm going to do the same thing with this number line. I'm actually going to turn it. Even though it's horizontal, I'm just going to spin it to where it's vertical. Okay, it's going to show us a little bit more of a clear picture, I think, as far as looking at a rising temperature. So we could say that, let's say that the temperature, for instance, is 72 degrees, maybe in the morning. Okay, and then as the day goes on, we can see that the temperature is going to rise by 8 degrees. And so since it's rising, it's going up. That term rising is going to tell us it is going up. It is going up by 8 degrees. We are adding 8 degrees to 72 degrees, and that's going to give us a what the temperature is at that moment. Maybe it's the afternoon, maybe the sun has come up and started warming everything up. So we would say that this is going to, an 8-degree rise in temperature can be written as a positive 8. So now we're going to kind of shift gears a little bit, and we're going to look at what is absolute value and what does this mean? With absolute value, when we start talking about operations with integers, so adding and subtracting, we are going to look more at finding the absolute value of numbers. We'll go into that in a little bit more detail when we go to when we start talking about addition and subtraction. For now, we just want to figure out what it is and how to find it. So the absolute value of a number is going to be its distance from 0 on a number line. In this case, though, it is different from looking at opposite numbers because we're not looking at going in either direction. We're looking at one direction and how far away from 0 it is. So we're not really looking at positive and negative numbers. We're just looking at units or places away. So this here is going to be, this notation is going to be how you would write the absolute value of a number. So if you see where we have these two bars and then there's a number or this variable in the middle, that's going to tell you you're looking at the absolute value of a number. So we would read this statement as the absolute value of X, or if there is a number, we would read it as the absolute value of that number. Let's look at an example of this. So we have these two numbers. We have negative 18 and negative 17, and then we have this number line. So I'm just going to, we'll have 0. Let's say we have, I'm going to add some places here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going into 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, and then 18. Keep going a little bit further. And these are negatives. We're going to the left of 0. So these are negative numbers. Okay. And so we want to figure out what the absolute value of a negative 18 is. So from 0, we are going all the way down here to negative 18. And if we counted all these places, we would know that we are going to be 18 places away from 0. 18 places, 18 units. It's going to take us 18, if we're talking about jumps on the number line, so we're jumping from 0 to -1 to -2, it's going to take us 18 times to get to this value of negative 18. Okay. Now, that means that if we're going to write the absolute value, if we're going to write what the absolute value of negative 18 is, we would just write this as 18. We're not really considering it being a positive 18 or a negative 18. We're just looking at what the value of that is in terms of how far away from 0 this number is. So the same thing with negative 17. Negative 17 would be about here on the number line. And so in this case, we would say that instead of going 18 places, we are actually going 17 places or 17 units from 0. So we could do the same thing with this one. We could write this as the absolute value of negative 17 is going to be a positive 17, or I'm sorry, not positive, it's going to be 17 places. So it's not positive. That was a mistake. It's not positive. It is 17 units or 17 places away from 0. Okay. If we look at some more examples, now we're looking at some positive numbers. So we would write, I could write 0, let's say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. So in this case, we want to find the absolute value of 16. So we would say that from 0 to 16, we're going to 16 here. We would say that this is going to be 16 places or 16 units away. And so we could write this as the absolute value of positive 16 is just 16. Now this next number 42, I don't think we're going to have enough space on the number line, but we will try. We get to about 30, but we would know that if we continued down here, we said, okay, this is 42 over here. We know that from 0, if we're looking at getting to 42, positive 42, we know that we're going to have to go 42 places to get there, 42 units. So we would say that the absolute value of a positive 42 is just going to be 42.